Now, I think Adam Driver's comments about this whole situation are quite interesting, and it feels like there's some external motive. He says that he's able to talk about it now. I assume because enough time has passed. He said he's been in talks about doing more Star Wars since 2021, and I always was interested in doing another Star Wars. But he also might just be trying to create some buzz around the project and potentially put some pressure on Disney to greenlight this thing and actually get it made. The movie was to be called The Hunt for Ben Solo, which I think is an interesting title. I'm not sure they should stick with that if they were to release this. And he says, but it's no more, so I can finally talk about it, meaning it's entirely shut down. And they're no longer, I guess, even looking at developing the project. Or is he? That's the real question here. Let's dig in a little further. I think it's quite telling that he specifically calls out a bunch of Lucasfilm and Disney staff by name. He talked about being approached by Kathleen Kennedy to work on something new, and that Steven Soderbergh put together a story which they pitched to Lucasfilm. Kathleen Kennedy was on board, Carrie Beck, vice president of Lucasfilm, was on board, and Dave Filoni was also interested. Adam Driver even goes as far to call it one of the coolest scripts he'd ever been a part of. He said they loved the idea, they totally understood our angle and why we were doing it, but then this next part's interesting. He specifically calls out the Disney executives. He says they took it to Bob Iger and Alan Bergman and they said no. They were the ones to say no to this thing, to shut it down. And seemingly because they didn't see how Ben Solo was alive, and that was that. That was that? So you're telling me that the Disney CEO is the one making the decisions of which characters live and which characters aren't alive anymore, and therefore they shouldn't develop more projects? But yet they're okay with doing stuff like
somehow Palpatine returned.
And it's not only what all of Adam Driver specifically said that I think can be telling as to what they're trying to do here. We even have a statement from Steven Soderbergh about the project. He said, I really enjoyed making the movie in my head. I'm just sorry the fans won't get to see it. And it's this kind of statement that I think is what's getting us all together, getting me to make videos like this and kind of spread the word about why they're not making this project and why maybe they should be. I'm not necessarily saying it's the greatest idea and the greatest narrative idea to bring back Ben Solo, but I think a lot of people would agree, no matter what you think of the sequels, Adam Driver's performance as Kylo Ren and Ben Solo is one of the standout features of the sequels. And I think there'd certainly be some ideas to explore as to, number one, how he survived, number two, the path he'd gone down with the dark side, and also the juxtaposition of his character to Darth Vader. I feel like there's so many narrative elements to explore here. In a lot of ways, Kylo Ren was living in the shadow of Vader, aspiring to be more like Vader, I guess you could say, and follow in his footsteps. And I think there's a lot more questions around the morality of this that could potentially be explored in a Kylo Ren Ben Solo film that weren't explored in the sequels. And it seems like, based on what they're saying, they did have a cool story, a cool idea, and a cool script.